in keeping with the athletic theme, Sam Amick from The Athletic is with us now, joining us from the Chase Center. Listen, man, for Michael and I's sake, we need this to at least go 7. Okay?
Yes.
We don't need to get out into it. You probably already know who we got to deal with around these parts all the time when the Warriors are winning. We at least need this to go 7. But, I mean, you know what? I'll try to get a 2-for-1 here in the interest of time. Do we get a couple of Game 7s in the Western Conference featuring 2 teams that we would love to see in the second round? That'd be a high-profile matchup. But one by one, I'd love to ask you about the Kings' chances of extending this series on the road, and for that matter, following Desmond Bane's guarantee, the Grizzlies' chances of extending their series with the Lakers on the road and getting it back to Game 7. So what do you think? Big night of ball tonight.
Gentlemen, I think that resident Warriors supporter Natalie's going to feel pretty good after tonight if I had to handicap it. I think the Warriors, they feel like they have figured out the Kings and what the operation and what they do from Sabonis on out. I admittedly, you talk about what we want. I mean, I live 20 minutes from Golden One Center. It would be fun to go cover a Game 7, regardless of what happens. I'd be down for that. Part of me does hope that we get to see that. But the Warriors reminding people who they are again and looking like that group is, to me, impressive yet again. On the flip side of that, Lakers, I don't know, man. Like, they're so inconsistent. I think they close out tonight. That's what I would handicap. But Memphis they got that spirit and they got that kind of go ahead and doubt us type energy. And Desmond putting the guarantee down. I don't know what to think. Lakers better do it tonight, though, because LeBron at his age, AD with everything he always deals with, one day off in between, going back to that type of environment would be brutal. So, but I think we're talking Lakers and Warriors win tonight.
All right, you said the Warriors have figured out what the Kings do. What's the number one thing you think they have mastered that maybe they didn't have in games 1 and 2?
I mean, Sabonis, the first 2 games, the Kings' defense was shockingly good for a team that was terrible defensively for most of the regular season. So that jumps to mind. But I think offensively, guys, like, I had Domantas Sabonis 5th in MVP this year, and I'm not alone. There's a lot of votes that are coming his way for that. And now in this series, the question is, wait a minute, he's not in this series. He's not even number 1 on his team. But Kevon Looney and Draymond Green, what they've done defensively, if you handicap the entire league and said, let me pinpoint a couple bigs who can guard Sabonis as well as anybody, those 2 guys would probably be in your top 5, maybe top 3. They've been incredible cutting off his passing lanes in terms of like being physical down low. And he's just not playing all that well. And if you take him away from what the Kings do, they're not going to win a 7-game series.
Switching conferences, we talked about how sexy a Lakers-Warriors conference semifinal would be in the West. Heat Knicks doesn't get much more nostalgic than that. And now we finally, sorry, Miss Jackson, as the Celtics said, we finally have Sixers-Celtics matching up in Eastern Conference on the other side of the bracket. Is that, with all due respect to Jimmy Butler, who I've said is the player, if I got a game to win that matters, I want Jimmy Butler over anybody.
Sure.
With all due respect to Jimmy Butler, to the Knicks and how they've looked so far in these playoffs, is Celtics-Sixers the de facto conference finals in the East?
It feels that way, but man, it's a hell of a sideshow that we're all going to enjoy to have Jimmy and the Heat shocking the world and being something to watch as well. But if you got to pick between the 2, absolutely. I mean, the Celtics don't look like a team that is hell-bent on dominating their way through the postseason to right the wrong of last year. We've had teams that when they lose in the finals, the Spurs some years ago, when they lost to the Heat, they were kind of on a mission. The Celtics are not giving that energy. They had to fight to get through the Hawks. And the point there is that against Philly, which did take care of business against the Nets, and with Joel Embiid having extra time to get healthy with what he's dealing with, I think it's squaring up to be a fun one, to be a really good one. And it is obviously crazy that in the East, where we thought that the elites were going to have an easy time early on, that Philly's the only one. So right now, I feel like, they might have the edge there.
Mike, that graphic that we just showed, Mike, you probably already know this, but this blew my mind. The Celtics are 23-1 when Brown and Tatum both scored 30. That's the best by any duo in NBA history, record-wise, when two teammates score 30. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, that's surprising, and Sam mentioned, kind of the surprising element of, the number one seed. You alluded to it. The number one seed in the East is no longer here, and there are many things to take away from that. One, let's just say on the court, Milwaukee losing to Miami. I'd just like to get your take on it. And then you had an interesting piece on this relationship between players and stars and the controversy over failure. So if you could address those two and just get us into that conversation, that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, the Bucks on the court, I'm as shocked as everybody else. It's funny because as a voter, we're not supposed to take playoff performance into account, right? But I would be lying to you if I didn't admit that when I voted for Giannis this year for MVP, it was way down on the list, but there was kind of this sentiment in my head of like, at least I know I'm voting for a dude who does get it done in the playoffs. Little did I know that now, just like Jokic the year before, we would have if he wins it, which he's not going to, that would be my MVP vote going to a guy who was bounced in the first round. I'm shocked. His injury played a big part, but even when he was out there, they did not get the job done. Jimmy was incredible. It made no sense. Nobody thought the Heat could do this. Now, if you talk about what happened post-game, and this is media stuff, but I think, the fans enjoy getting close to the game.
Hold on, Sam. Because once we get into that part, I'm not going to want to come back here. So I'm going to interrupt you and interject now because, Michael, this may not come as a surprise to you. That was pretty revealing to me. So you just said that you're not supposed to factor in postseason expectations before casting your vote for regular season MVP. But in the back of your mind, you said, and I appreciate your transparency, you said you'd be lying if you didn't do that.
Yeah.
How many voters do that? Because that shocks me to hear that. Because it's a regular season award, and I don't have to tell you that.
It is. I can't speak to how many people feel that way. I certainly don't think I'm alone. But I think that, so I vote for Jokic the last 2 years. What tugs at you a little bit is that general idea that just from a basketball standpoint, that when the games mean a whole lot more on that playoff stage, if this particular player in his style and the way he competes and the way he gets the job done, if it is more schemable than some of the other guys and you feel like he's going to have a short runway no matter what. The Warriors series last year is a good example. Obviously, no Jamal Murray, no Michael Porter Jr. Nobody thought the Nuggets were going to win that series. But independent of that, the Warriors coaching staff had zero, lost sleep at night when it comes to figuring out how to take advantage of Jokic on the defensive end, beat him up there, run pick and roll his direction every single time, and then, figure out offensively how to circumvent his superpowers. And that is the stuff you try to unpack, is the question of, yes, who was the most dominant this regular season, but I think you care a bit about if it is, and I would never come within a million miles of calling Joker's game gimmicky. I just don't know the other word. There is that question. Is it going to hold up on the biggest stage? And Giannis, the human part of voting is this. If you've been doing this in the league almost 20 years, if you ask me short list of performances that left an imprint on me, Giannis doing what he did to Phoenix in the finals a couple years back is at least the type of thing where you never have those kinds of questions about who he is as a player. And the part I'm acknowledging, like you said, being transparent, is that it's an undercurrent, right? It kind of informs your ultimate opinion of that player.
Gotcha. Okay, so thank you for that. So now,
no, for sure.
I'm sorry. I was going to say back to the post game question that everybody was talking about and the fallout from it and your macro perspective on the failure question.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the discussion to me, it's funny, guys. I didn't take much philosophy in college. I do remember in Philosophy 101 that there's not a right answer, right? Like it's a discussion, and that's kind of where I see this discussion. The rings culture, that whole all or nothing idea that if a guy wins a chip, then he's the best, and if he doesn't, he's a failure. It's a discussion. I like Giannis's point of view, and on the media side, our guy who covers the Bucks and has for quite some time, Eric Name. I thought asked a good binary question. Now, it was closed-ended. That journalism-wise, you try to go open-ended with questions, but it was binary, which means that he knows Giannis' personality well enough to know that while he might get a little irritated by that question, it would compel him to be honest. And that's what he did. And then you got to understand the way that Giannis saw this fascinating question.
So he knew. 100%. He purposely asked it that way because he knew how Giannis would respond.
He's covered Giannis since 2015. Now, a quick funny story, if we have time, that I didn't write this in the column, but I think Eric would be fine with me sharing. In Giannis's comment, he was personalizing it with Eric, and he says, Eric, do you try to get a promotion every year? Isn't that the goal? I laughed when I saw that comment because the summer after the Bucks won the title, I saw Giannis at Summer League in Vegas, and Giannis and I and Eric, this reporter, had actually done a lot of different conversations where we've been around each other a lot in the finals. So I see Giannis at Summer League, and I was just kind of playing with him a little bit. I was like, Giannis, you hear about the biggest free agent pickup of the summer? And he looks at me a little confused, like, what are you talking about? And I said, Eric Name, Bucks beat writer, just got a new contract. Look at this guy, and he kind of smiled like he's got affection for Eric, respects him.
Yeah.
And Eric, 98% of the year, guys, if you heard the type of stuff he gets into, it's not my style at all. He is asking about pick and roll coverage. He's asking about why are you hedging here? Like, it is hardcore basketball. But in this kind of a moment when they crashed like they did, I think it was fair. And I think the audience has a better understanding of who Giannis is as a person now because of that question, and that is the role that media plays.
Interesting. I just don't want to get to a place, Sam, where we say there is no failure in sports. Because that's like failure is integral to sports. It's how you respond and recover from failure. Like, if we don't have failure in sports, we got
Michael Jordan had his commercial, right? The MJ commercial back in the day,
Yes.
Yeah.
I respect Giannis' life and worldview.
Yeah.
I respect his worldview, but I just disagree with it,
Yeah, but you know what? But I think
I probably do too.
Yeah, but it's failure, but it's redeemable. We're not talking about failure that can never be repaired.
Right.
So I think that maybe that's a disagreement.
Right.
And my last thought, guys, I feel like Giannis honestly thinks that the premise is that if you call it a failure, like I wrote, like that you wasted the last year of your life. Like, that's not what people are saying. And I do think
that's good stuff.
That's what he doesn't want to admit to that.
Good stuff, Sam. Thank you, brother.
All right, guys. Appreciate you. See you next time.
Hey, thank you for watching Brother from Another. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do that now. Don't forget, you can catch us 3 to 4 weekdays on PeacockTV.com and on Sirius XM Channel 85.